Hi, fifth grade. So, as you know, Ms. Hillman and I are making videos with step-by-step instructions to help you with any part of your project if you need. So, in this first video, I will be reviewing our background information lesson that we learned, I think it was early November. It was the first or second week of second quarter, so it was a little while ago. So we started off with some slides, and I will post these slides underneath this video so you can follow along and look at the notes. But basically we just learned about what does Indigenous mean, who are Indigenous people, why is it important to learn about Indigenous people. And so our learning targets for the day were I can share what I know about Indigenous people in the United States, and I can explain what makes someone Indigenous. And so hopefully by now in the project you know this, but if in case you need a review of what this means, we talked about Indigenous people are the earliest known people to have occupied the land. They were here before anyone else. There are Indigenous people all over the world, known by tribes of different names. They were in the places they lived before Europeans explored and colonized their land. Here are a few examples. And so we talked about how Maori people live in New Zealand. Aztecs, Mayans, and Inca are our groups of indigenous tribes in Mexico and other parts of Central America. And Kanaka Maoli is a group of tribes in the Pacific Islands. And so not Native Hawaiians. We talked about that in another class, how I wrote that wrong. But if you would like to watch a video about why we call them Indigenous and not other names like you might have heard of in the past, like Native American, you can click on this YouTube video at the top and it will explain it to you. So next I had us watch a brain pop, which goes into the history of Native groups in America. So in this land of North America, there's lots of different tribes. So it talks about the differences between each of the tribes. And then I had us take some guided notes, which you can get to by clicking on this link. And I want you, if you do not have this written in your notebook yet, you can write these terms in your notebook. This will help you with your paper. So our first term on the left-hand side is the word indigenous. And this word means native to a place, the people who were on the land before Europeans colonized and stole their land. There are different groups of indigenous people all over the world, but different groups have different cultures, traditions, and ways of life. So Sioux and Anishinaabe, which were the two indigenous groups that we focused on, are different tribes. They have different languages, right? And they lived in different parts of Minnesota. So the Sioux people, or Dakota, lived more southern. So they lived in North Dakota, South Dakota, Minnesota, Wisconsin, right? They lived lower down in the Midwest for the most part. And the Anishinaabe, or the Ojibwe people, lived in Canada and northern Minnesota, northern Michigan, right? And parts of North Dakota as well. So those two tribes were very close together and often had a lot of conflict with each other over resources. Our second term is whitewashing, and we've talked about this in the context that means the story of Thanksgiving and what happened, and the story we tell is different from the actual truth. So this means to gloss over or cover up the truth because the real story is not as pleasant. When you change the narrative, which means story, people do not learn what actually happened, and the injustice that was caused in the first place continues. And so what this means is that for Native people in the US, a lot of their history has been lost because we do not choose to learn about it or teach about it. A lot of schools and a lot of people don't know their history and what happened when the Europeans came and colonized their land. And what happened with Thanksgiving, where they weren't actually friends, but the Europeans killed them after the meal, right? We talked about that in later lessons. So this was just our background to get us started. And then we did an exit ticket, but I'm not going to have us do that for this background video. So all you need to do at this step in writing your paper is just make sure you have those 2 notes copied down. And the way you get there is by clicking through the slides, getting to this slide, number 7, and clicking on guided notes. And that will take you to the notes. Okay, bye.